So now let's format this. And the first thing we need to do is, right now this is still just a big blob of text, and we need to turn it into an array of JavaScript objects. And that's easy to do in JSON. So all I have to do is set definitions equal to JSON.parse response. And that's all I need to do to get an array of objects back. And then I'm going to go through this array one object at a time, and I could create separate document object models for each thing in here and add them, but that's a lot of work. And so what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to build an HTML string, and then when I have the string completely built, instead of setting the inner text of contents, I'm going to set inner HTML of contents to that whole HTML string. So the string is going to start as empty, and I'm going to add to it. And then I'm going to create a couple of loop variables, so I and j. And now I'm ready to actually start walking through this array. So instead of setting inner text, for I is 0, I less than definitions.length, I plus plus. And I could have used for each here, but I actually want to know when I'm on the first one because I have to handle that one a little differently. So basically what I'm going to do, let's look at the definition again. So you'll notice that there's a lemma, which is the word, and a part of speech, which is noun, verb, adjective, and so on. And all of the word, parts of speech combinations I want to group together. So every time I see a change here in either abacus, lemma, or noun, part of speech, I'm going to introduce a new main heading and then list the definitions under that. So for the first one, I'm going from not having anything at all to having the first one, so I want to include this one always. This one I'm going to skip because the word here is the same as the word here, and part of speech here is the same as part of speech there. But that's not always the case. So for example, let's try functions, see if that works. Yeah, so we have a whole lot of stuff. Let me search for functions. So this one starts out as a noun, but then it switches over to a verb at some point, and so on. So let's see how this is going to work. I'm going to go back here, and if I is equal to 0 or definitions of I dot lemma not equal definitions of I minus 1 dot lemma. So the word has changed. And that could be like with better, because better was either good or well. Or definitions of I dot pos not equal definitions of I minus 1 dot pos. So if anything's different, and let me break this line here. So if either of those things is true, I'm going to add to my HTML string. Let's go bold, and then definitions, oops, plus definitions of I dot lemma, and then end the bold, and then open paren, put the part of speech in a colon. And for now, I'll put a break in here as well. And then after I've finished my loop, I'll set contents.innerHTML, if that's capital, is equal to a .html. So this isn't going to output the definitions, but it will output each of the major headings. Let's reload here. And Dict. Good. So we have a major heading for function, noun, and function verb. Now instead of not N and V here, I actually want to put the word. And those are over here in the part of speech types table. And there's only 5 of them. So rather than fetching that from the database and joining it, I'm just going to go ahead and add them right to my JavaScript program. So let's declare and this is going to be a new object, and the noun property is noun, and the verb property is verb, and a adjective r is adverb, and finally s is an adjective satellite. Not really sure what that is, but don't need to know. And then when I go to output the part of speech, I'm going to output parts of speech sub the part of speech. So that's another way of accessing a property of an object. Just treat it like an associative array. And let's see if that worked. Reload. And make that a little bigger. And Dict. Good. So now it says noun and verb. Now, whenever I introduce a new major heading, I'm also going to start an ordered list of definitions. So instead of break here, I'm going to do OL. And I have a type for this, which is a dict list. So class is dict list. And I'm using single quotes because I'm inside of double quotes, and it's just easier that way. And then for each definition, I'm going to start just by outputting the definition. So HTML plus equals, and then a list item, and the class name for that list item is dict list li. Plus definition sub I dot, let's look at it, definition property, and then close off the li tag. So in the if I'm on the first one, the first heading, there's no li to close off. But when I go to do the second heading, I have to close off the first one. So I'm also going to say if I is not equal 0, then HTML plus equal close off the ordered list. And that's going to match this one right here. And then after I've run through all of the definitions, I'm going to still have an ordered list open. So HTML plus equal and ordered list here too. So now I should have some definitions. Good, so I have definitions. And if it's shorter than the height of the box, then I don't get my scroll bar, which is what I want. Let's try this one. So adjective, satellite, adjective. Actually, I want to sort these, so I'm going to make a quick change to my PHP so that these are together. Um, don't worry if you don't know PHP. You don't need to worry about this part. I'll go ahead and change this in the upload so that you don't have to worry about it. But basically what I want to do is in this select here, I want to add an order by. And I want to order by lemma first and then part of speech. And now if I reload, great. So now these are grouped together properly. So the only thing I have left to do is to add the samples list. So the samples you'll see look like that. There's a sample set property, and then it's either null, I don't have one, or I have one, or I have a list of ones that are separated by a bar, like so. So here's one with a sample set, here's one without a sample set, so I have null there. So basically in my Dict.js, after I've shown the definition right here, then I want to check if definitions of I dot sample sets. So if there are samples, then I need another variable. So here what I want to do is I want to set samples equal to definitions sub I dot sample set dot split on bar. So that's going to break out each individual sample using the bars. And then I have an array of sample sentences, and I want to put them in an unordered list. And once again, I have a style for that, which uses a little right arrow to point out each sample. So first, I'm going to add an unordered list to my HTML. And the class for this is dict samp list, and the LIs are going to be dict samp LIs. So class dict samp list, and then for j equals 0, j less than samples sub length, j plus plus, HTML plus equal, list item class is dict samp li, should be single quote. And then I also like these italicized, so I'm going to put an italics in there, plus samples sub j, and then close off the li tag. So that's going to add one list item for each sample, and then I close off my unordered list. So let's go ahead and look at that. So I have an error. Let's take a look at the error. Definitions is not defined. Definition, oh no, I misspelled it. Definitions, sub I. Good. So there's my list. Oh, I forgot to close off my italicization. So let's do that. And reload. Good, so that looks nice, and it wraps and indents properly. So let's find a longer one. So here's a long one. And I have my little scroll bar, so that's working. And that looks pretty good. What is a program? So I think that's it. All we need to do now is test it out in Firefox, Internet Explorer, and maybe add a custom icon for this.